All right, guys, welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to Theory and Theology. On here we talk about cultures and spirituality and theories, overall. And yeah, I've been kind of jumping into some musical projects. So along the way, I came across an interesting topic related to hip hop, freestyling, rap, and some information that I found really cool. Now I haven't looked up a scientific article of it yet, but it piques my interest because I'm really, always fascinated. Like I mentioned before, I first was interested in having a career in like auditory perception, because I was always like interested in languages and cultures, and ever since I was a little kid, I'd like see languages and just be like, written languages and just be like, just love it. I love anything that needs like translating, anything from codes, like coding on the computer, to music notes, to languages that are written in different ways. It's just like, the world is kind of filled with puzzles, and it's, it kind of makes things a little bit fun. As long as you're not like in some kind of weird situation where like you need to know something and you don't really know how to decipher. But yeah, I was, I've talked about this a little bit before. I don't know if I've talked about it directly on here, and I don't know what I would exactly say, when it comes to this topic. Like it's kind of a loaded topic, but not necessarily negative. So there's kind of this, like I face this a lot in a religion too, in a conservative Christian religion. It comes up in religion, it comes up in, just society in general, about music, right? So let me give you an example. So this isn't even like a bad example, right? When I would walk into the meetings at work, sometimes on Thursdays, or because we started at noon, and I would walk in, and it wasn't always like this, but sometimes different leads would be in charge of like setting up the room. And so I would usually get there kind of on time because I had Subway, and like I'd have to set up my laptop to take notes, and then like it was a noon meeting, so I was like, well, I want to eat, so I would get there like a couple minutes early to be able to like put my stuff away, get the computer set up, and eat. I wasn't like 30 minutes early, but I was usually like not the first person. And then people would start rolling in by the latest around noon, and then they would still be setting up. So the meeting didn't really fully start at noon, like, because noon was actually the time work started. And so people weren't even like in the building. Like they didn't have to be in the building before noon, but it was like, it was just a little less stressful just to get there earlier, to set up and settle in. And like, you're starting a day with a 2-hour intense meeting. So I was kind of like, okay, I want to like eat and just chill, have my tea with my half a sub sandwich and just relax, And so, one day it was just a normal meeting day. I come in, and, the person who's setting up before me, she has this, she's a lead, and she has this like music playing on the main desktop computer in that conference room, and setting up the screen and everything, the projector, everything. And she said, she basically was like playing like some, I don't know what song it was, but it was like a hip hop song. I have no clue what it was. It wasn't something that was like super popular at that time, but it was a little older, but I kind of recognized it, but it wasn't like a song that I was so familiar with. Like, I wouldn't know the lyrics, but it's something I'd probably like heard in a club or something. And so, at one part they were kind of like, it was kind of like a song with a little bit of profanity, and it was like, whatever, like, I don't really care. Like, she wasn't blasting it, she wasn't like sitting at the computer listening to it. Like, she's setting up and just kind of setting like an environment for the meeting, just to kind of like be able to like, it's nice to walk into a meeting with music, honestly. Like, so it was kind of cool. And I remember walking in, and it's just me and her. She's a Caucasian blonde female, and I'm just like black female. Walk in, and we're just like, hey, what's up? Like, she's setting up, and I start setting up my stuff and doing my part for the meeting. I would write certain categories on the board, and then I just kind of like log in. It took forever to log into all this stuff and everything, so I'd log in and all this kind of stuff, and just be like eating my Subway, and saying hi to people. But no one was there. It was just me and her, and with the song. And then like, it wasn't a long period of time. It was like within that single song period of time, and somewhere in there they said like the N-word, and she was just like, oh, sorry, and I was like, oh, it's the artist's intent. Like, she wasn't saying it, she was just playing music in this, and it just happened in the song. And it's just like, it was kind of interesting, because I was just now realizing how awkward that must be for somebody. It's like, to me, I wasn't like offended. I was just like, whatever. Like, I was a little surprised she was playing a song with profanity in it. To me, that was a little, like, it wasn't like full profanity, but it was like a little bit of profanity, like noticeable profanity. And so I was kind of like, okay, like, that's a little interesting, but I'm not like uptight about it. I didn't really think much of it. And then like, when the N-word came up, and then it got like a little awkward, because she kind of like apologized, and then I was like, I didn't really know what to say, because I was like, I don't know, like, what am I supposed to say? She's playing a song that has the N-word in it, and she's like apologizing, and I was just kind of like, whatever. And I'm not like blaming her, or like, I didn't think anything offensive about it. I'm like, this is just how the music is, right? Sometimes. So that, and then like thinking about like churches, and their kind of beliefs about like proper music, and like a lot of times anything with like an up-tempo beat, or anything that might make you tap your foot or sway, depending on what kind of church. I would say Pentecostal churches don't tend to have this issue, because they might be like, some churches where they'll be like getting the Holy Ghost and like dancing around, and like, kind of like, I don't know what they call when you're like slain in the spirit, and like falling out, and like just all kinds of people just like dancing around and stuff. Like, those churches don't tend to have an issue so much with being like outwardly expressive. And there's another church that I used to, it was like a Korean church, that they would have like like, there was we used to do like a Friday night Vespers kind of thing, and then they would have this Korean church group that would use they use the church some other days during the week or something, or Sundays or something, but they on Friday nights they would have like a prayer meetup, where they would be like, there'd be like a person set up on the keyboard, like an electric keyboard, and like I think maybe guitars, like maybe acoustic guitars or something, and they'd be playing these songs. They were church songs. I don't feel like they were ever songs I recognized. They were just like some other songs, and they would be just in there like screaming, and like not like shrieking, shrill kind of screaming, but they'd be like, we'd be like on the other side of the church. Like, there's like a whole hallway, outdoor hallway and structure between us and that back kitchen. There's like 3 separate buildings. So we'd be in the 3rd building, and they'd be in like the 1st building towards the back parking lot. And we could hear them, because it's like Friday night, it's a residential neighborhood, and we could hear them all the way through the other side of the church. And we'd be in there like after our Vespers, just kind of chilling, hanging out, talking to each other, catching up, whatever, maybe still playing some music on guitar or whatever. And they'd be over there, it's like, ah, like, and a lot of people, and some of them were saying like more verbal stuff that I couldn't understand. I'm assuming it may have been a Korean language, it may have been some other kind of speaking in tongues or something. I don't know. I have no idea. But we parked back there, so we'd have to like pass them to like go to our cars. So we would kind of stop a little bit sometimes and kind of like, I mean, I remember kind of teasing them because it was a little awkward, but I remember one of my other friends never like laughed about it, even though the rest of us, we were kind of laughing, but not really. Like, it's like, I really have respect for people who are able to just like be in any setting and just like let go and just kind of like be like all just like in the moment, even like when I go to like festivals and concerts and people are dancing, or like drum circles and people are dancing, or whenever I see somebody like dancing or like on the street like singing, is like, that takes a lot of guts, even when you're with your friends doing karaoke in a room and you don't even care about the quality, you're still kind of putting yourself a little on the spot. And like, I've made a fool of myself plenty of times, like in public, with singing and playing instruments and with bands and like screwing up songs and stuff in the middle of church. I've been kind of in a position to like screw up in front of a bunch of people, and it's never fun. So to see people just like out there when they're like with a group of people, maybe like 20 people, and people like bowing on the floor and like yelling and laying on the ground and being like, oh, like whatever they're saying or doing, I'm pretty sure it's a good release of negative energy, if nothing else. I mean, I think all of us can kind of relate to like, how often do you want to just like scream into your pillow or something, like when, like, I've seen people do that when they're just like mad and they're just like, and it's just like, hey, that's better than like chewing somebody out or whatever. But, I found it pretty, like, those kind of thoughts, like with the work experience, with the hip hop song in the background, and kind of like the lyrics being a little causing like a little bit of an awkward, it wasn't super awkward, like, honestly, it's just one of those weird things that happened, but it wasn't that awkward. I wasn't offended at all. I just think, I never thought how that experience would be to be around a Caucasian person when that word is coming up in a song, and then how they might feel about it, because I didn't really feel any kind of way. Like, if she wouldn't have said anything, I wouldn't have thought anything past the profanity. I wasn't, like, offended by it, because I'm like, it's not on her. Like, she just picked the song. She might not even know what the song is. I didn't really know the song, like, I just was like, oh, this is like, I was surprised to come into a room and there's like hip hop music playing. I thought it was kind of cool. I was down with it. I was like, this is a little change and it's kind of nice. And from that point on, it was like country music whenever I came in. But still, I was like, I liked coming into a meeting with like music. It wasn't blasting, but it was like kind of cool to come in and it's like, all right, like it's a vibe, and like I didn't care what kind of music. Like, it was kind of chill. It was better than the tension, because it was a freaking tense meeting. So we already came into it knowing we were going to be tense, and people just like debating about what's the best treatment plans, and like people being like, oh, I'm too overwhelmed, I'm too overloaded, but here's 3 more high-risk clients, and like you need to do all this follow-up and all this stuff. It was just like a meeting of just like all the stuff that we never had time to do, and we just had to just like problem solve it within 2 hours between all the staff. And it was very organized, but very just like stressful. And we did it every single week. And I would have to leave the meeting. It was 2 hours long, and I would leave at least twice to just go walk around the building outside, get some water, go to the bathroom. Like, I'd be gone for at least like 10 to 15 minutes twice during that meeting. Like, I couldn't sit there the whole time. I would have to leave because I was so stressed out. And I was, so those experiences kind of come to my memory when it comes to this next topic. The main topic that I was trying to get to, which is like 15 minutes in. I haven't hit the point yet, but so all that to say, there was this topic that's about music, and the musical topic mainly focuses on hip hop, right? And through this one documentary, I gotta find the name of it. It was on Netflix a while back, like years, probably like 3 years ago. I saw it on Netflix, and it was hip hop artists, kind of talking about the how there's some kind of systemic kind of scheme against hip hop artists, because they're very intelligent, they're very smart people, they're very skilled lyrically, but all you really get to hear in mainstream media is about like the stereotype of like the gangster and the drugs, and just like something that's like a little on the shocking side of like a little bit of like a life lived on the edge, kind of improper, not quite civil living, kind of perspective. That's usually what the mainstream media wants to promote. And this documentary was going a little bit into like that's what the mainstream media wants to promote, but that's not really what all the hip hop artists are all about. And it makes them almost look like they're maybe like there's not a lot of intellect there, or like it just gives an impression that it's not fully like the full picture, right? Like when we think of classical music, we think of intellect and all these smart geniuses that were like skilled from like very young ages, like, and they, grew up and, were very like musically advanced. When we think of hip hop artists, that's not usually the image that we're seeing. But also it's like, what's the difference, I think musical genius can come in all kinds of forms. We might not really think of it coming from certain places. But I mean, the more you study music, the more you realize how complex a lot of these artists are. There's this guy on YouTube called Classical Kyle, and he has a few interviews he did with like with Doja Cat and like Unknown T. He's like a UK drill rapper. I think he did one with Megan the Stallion. I could be wrong. He has a few other hip hop artists on there. He doesn't just do like hip hop, but he basically has hip hop artists come onto his channel, and he's a classically trained professional musician, and he has them play their music, and they come in with the persona and like maybe like their brand persona or just kind of how they look, and he's always dressed in like kind of like khaki style, like chinos, and like kind of proper, and like has a British accent, kind of proper talking. And he has these artists come in that are usually they have like a type of an accent from like different types of neighborhoods, and like a lot, like these guys, for example, the UK drill rapper, he has like a really deep voice, this one guy did, and just like I think he came in just kind of dressed like a bomber kind of jacket. I think he was wearing like a jacket like that, and like he had dreads and shades on, and like, but there was no disrespect between any of them. There was no discomfort. He was most uncomfortable talking to Doja Cat because of the booty songs and all this he was a little like, and trying to like interpret the lyrics, like he kind of asked like, what are these lyrics about or whatever, and he was a little like embarrassed by the lyrics, and like watching the music video with the twerking and all that, like he was a little like, okay. But musically he had a lot to say about the music, a lot of good stuff. And I've seen other stuff like that, but it's kind of cool to see like classical musicians reviewing like different types of like hip-hop type of music, and they're not saying like, oh, like this sounds like trash or not advanced or whatever. It's like his critique of it is like, wow, like, how, this part here, or like how you like do this with the tone while this is like shifting over here, or like, it's like he picks up on things, and it's like artist talking to artist, and it's really cool to see. And I wish that there was more of that, because I feel like a lot of people don't, maybe, I'm not saying people have to like hip hop if they don't like it. I know a lot of people who don't like certain types of music. I guess that's maybe normal, but I mean, I think most music I've heard I like a lot. It just depends what I'm in the mood to hear. There's a couple types of music that I've come across that I'm like, this is a little I think three that I can think of off the top of my head. So music that they have in horror movies, that's not really my thing. I don't like that suspenseful, like fear evoking kind of sound too much, because it makes me really stressed. An alternative to that for me would be like some dubstep, how it's so like dark, or even some metal, how it's like so like aggressive. I think, I can do that. I like it. I find a lot of, I get a lot out of it. Just horror music, scores for me just aren't necessarily what I would gravitate towards listening to, even though I do appreciate like the Harry Potter scores, like there are a lot of musical scores that I'm just like, wow, this is like so amazing. Amazing sounding. So that's one. The second one is what is it? I'm totally blanking right now, you guys. This is so bad. It's late for me. Oh man, it's another late forgetful night. So what was I even talking about? Jeez. Like things that kind of stick out in my mind as things that I maybe might not gravitate towards. So there was the horror sounds. There's this one, okay, so like the Amish type of, I forgot what the music type is called. I think it starts with a G, but it's like, it's the kind of music that they sing in church, in the traditional like old order Amish churches, from their type of hymnal. And it's almost like Gregorian chants, but it's in Pennsylvania. No, is it in German, or is it in Pennsylvania Dutch? Because I think they speak Pennsylvania Dutch, but I think their church service is all in German. I could be wrong, but I think it's in German. And maybe not even like a modern German. I don't really know. But yeah, those are songs that are just, it's not even that I don't like them. There's something about it that just is just confusing to my brain. It's just, how would I even explain it? It's not the same for me as Gregorian chants. Like for some reason, those are, I like them. There's like this one, like, I don't know, they make me feel weird. I don't know what it is about it. Like there's something about like a whole church of people singing these songs. They say those songs last like 15 minutes. And I think they were saying like there's a song like Lobelieb or something like that's the second song they always sing in every Amish church service. And I think they sang like 4 or 5 songs. So I'm like, dude, y'all are singing for a real long time, like over an hour of like songs that are like that long, and sitting on hard wooden benches with no back to the bench, and like it just sounds like so intense, like there's some intensity to it. It's like, it's just like reminds me of intense suffering. I don't know. That's kind of the vibe I get from it, is like, because they're not really allowed to play instruments. Like, I don't know, I guess all the Amish groups are different from one another, but overall, a lot of them say they're not really allowed to like take on instruments, learn instruments. At church, they don't play instruments. And one group was saying that like the harmonica is okay for their group, but then there's also like certain types of music that they can't really be playing or singing. And so their music is just so different from what I'm used to. I'm not really used to like trying to get into some kind of a trance when I'm listening to, well, that's wrong. That's incorrect. That's not true. That's not true. Just maybe not that version of one, because it's different. Like, I like EDM music for that reason. It kind of like puts me kind of in like a bit of a kind of like a trance state, like not really fully like deeply in there, but more so than not, especially when it's live and you're like up front and you're just like jamming with the DJs, and it's like you don't even care who's behind you, nobody's pushing nothing, and you're just up front and everybody's just kind of like jamming with the DJ, and like there's all the lights, and like, you know, it's really amazing of an experience. Like, you can like physically feel the music, and especially when it's not like too loud, it's like perfect, you know, like when you don't have to use like earplugs or anything, and you're just like up there, and it's like, man, this like, it's like you physically like feel it. It's like an interesting experience. To me, it almost feels similar to the experience I get when I go to the beach in the ocean, and I kind of just like listen to the waves and maybe like dip in the water for a little bit. But like, definitely when I'm just like listening to the ocean, it kind of does something to the mind. And I feel like, you know, EDM music, especially when it's live, it does the same thing. And I feel like this Amish music does the same thing, but it's a different feel from the Amish music. It's kind of like almost like taking on a lot of sorrow. Like, that's kind of how it feels to me. I don't know if other people even, I don't know, like, this is how I think about things. This is why, you know, I make things harder on myself than they need to be, I guess. But so that's the second type. And then the third thing that you know, I probably would avoid more so. I don't know what culture it is. I don't know if it's like in Micronesia, like Chuk or Yap, or what group of people. I want to say it's a Micronesian tribe that has this music that it's like, I just know visually when I saw a documentary, it was like one of the nicest, not the nicest tribal people on earth, but like, I was like kind of putting myself in the position of the people visiting this place, and I was like, man, if I ever visited those people, I would probably never want to come home anytime soon. Like, it just seems so nice, and like beautiful culture of just like giving and acceptance, and like they really seem like I've never heard or seen a community that to me was like the most ideal form of deep relationships in a community, like a whole community valuing the depth of their relationships with each other. Like, that's not something that you usually see too much. In Western culture, you usually see like the competition, and like people are a little bit suspicious, at least like early on. But it's hard to get that community feel. Like, you can always create community, you can always create safe spaces, but I feel like it's hard to get that feel everywhere. Like, sometimes when you meet new people or new groups or whatever, you know, I notice there is sometimes like you come across people who are into the ego, the competition, all that kind of stuff, and you're like, oh, like, I thought we were just gonna chill, you know, now we gotta like deal with all the BS, you know. But sometimes it's like that, like to an extent where it's like just a burden. And yeah, that culture seemed really cool. And I was like excited to see what kind of music they were gonna do, because they had this like festival, and it was like people were kind of sitting in a circle, and they were like singing, kind of like almost like these kind of chants. There wasn't a lot of variation to the melody. There wasn't really like a beat or like a repetition that made any sense, but everybody was synchronized singing, but it didn't seem to have like a synchronized like pace or beat or rhythm to it. It's just, I've never heard, other than the Amish, kind of like the Gregorian chants or like the Amish hymns, I'm not used to music that doesn't have like a repetitive kind of a repetition to it, like, or a beat to it, or like something consistent to it. Like, it was just like, maybe it looped, but maybe way long. I don't really know. Like, there was this one song, it kind of almost reminds me of like sometimes when you listen to musicals or when you watch a musical, and there's songs like that where it's like part of the story, but maybe it doesn't have like a verse chorus, kind of like that. It's kind of like, we're just gonna go linearly like down this route. Yeah, kind of like the way you see it like in plays. That's kind of the best way I can describe it, is like in plays or like jam sessions. But even then, usually there's like a beat or like a pattern of a rhythm. So yeah, to me it's really kind of odd for me to try to, those three musical types to me are like, it's not that I hate them, it's just that I don't like go out of my way to listen to it. But I do try to challenge my thinking about it, because I do find it complex and like fascinating. It's like, how do you remember 15-minute long songs that don't really sound like they're repetitive? But I haven't really studied the music, so maybe my perspective on it is different. Because I remember when I started studying some of the like powwow drumming, I kind of noticed more about it, like more of the detail of like how it's organized. I don't really know it off the top of my head. Like, there's a couple songs I know, because there's like I think it's like a Northern Cree. I can't remember the name of the group. That's kind of a little popular, and people were using their songs in like TikTok videos and stuff. And they have a song about like Facebook or something like that. It was really cool. Like, I really liked it. And like that kind of song, I was like really gravitating towards it. And then it kind of made me like study some of the other like powwow music, because I like to go on powwows.com and watch live powwows, just because I love it. But I really like drumming, and I was really kind of interested, because there's not that many times where you see like a cultural style, like a group style of drumming, where it's like a group of people, and you kind of notice like they understand like when the big like harder hits are versus the slight tapping, and where to like where the tempo might like rise, or like how like where there's like accents in the beats and stuff, and they're like singing along, and there's like some little solo patches, and like I was like, okay, like if you listen to it over and over and over again, you kind of start getting it. And there's this kid named Baby Opie. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but I've been watching his like upbringing with like I think he's like, I don't even know the wording, but he seems like a baby musical spiritual healer. That's kind of the impression I get. They have like clips of him on Instagram where he's like younger than he is now, and he's like using the drum. He has like a single like hand drum. I don't know the name of it, but it's like basically like stretched skin over, I think it's a rounded wooden frame. It almost looks like a tambourine, but it's got a skin stretched over it, and then there's like kind of tied with like string or rope, and or some kind of string type of thing, and then like it's kind of held on the back side of the drum, and then there's like a drumstick, and then you could just kind of like hit the drum. So I really like that. I really liked his like Baby Opie's kind of like videos that they post of him. So I kind of followed his content more, and it kind of helped me to go back, to like something that like a kid, a very skilled and talented kid can do, because that's kind of, even for me, it was still way advanced, but I was like, it was easier to learn it from that than to just go onto like a powwow video and try to figure it out. So I was watching how he progressed in his single hand drumming, and then started seeing him going in with like the men groups, or like the young boys or young men groups, where they were doing their own drumming. And then I don't really know what the type of drumming is called. Like he does one where he's solo with the microphone and the drumstick, and he's singing while he drums. And then there's other ones where there's like groups. I don't know if it's part of a powwow all the time, or if these are just competitions, because I feel like they're like competitions. So I feel like he's in a drumming competition where it's like a single drum, and then people play along. Everyone who's supposed to drum in that circle plays the same large drum with their own drumstick. He has some solos in some of those clips of the songs. And there are other ones where like you'll see him with like an older male, and they're both, I guess he's maybe learning the song, and the older male is like holding the drumstick while Baby Opie's holding it too, and then like he's kind of like along with the drum pattern. There's different drumming for different types of, I guess, powwow dancing, like the men's like the women's like fancy shawl, or like the jingle dress, or the like the men's, like I've seen like the chicken dance. There's like the fancy, I think it's just fancy dance, or I don't know if that's what it's called. And then the grass dance. There's some that are like all tribe. Some that are for veterans. The tiny tots have different types of dancing for boys and girls. And so, yeah, I find it just very interesting, culturally, all that kind of musical stuff that's not really, you don't really see it too much in the mainstream. So it's kind of hard to like understand it. But then when you listen to it more and more and more, you're like, wow, okay, these songs have patterns to them as well, even though it just sounds like somebody banging on a thing. Like the more you listen to it, you kind of see how the song is divided up into sections and it's organized. It's just not as obvious until you kind of like train your ear to kind of notice what's going on. And then there's I guess one of the last points I wanted to touch on, there's this I think I've mentioned on here before that like I follow this YouTuber July. So she's July303.com or kickbackcouture.com, or on YouTube Kickback Couture, or on Instagram July303. And she's got basically she does Reason Studios music production, and she raps, she's a poet, she does some speeches, she does some interviews, she does a lot of tutorials. She actually makes her own products, like plugins and instruments that she sells that work with Reason. She does other tutorials about like certain electronic instruments, and other programs like Ableton Live, um, and things like that. So, I mean, I really like her content. Getting back into, using Reason, it's been nice kind of seeing her content, because it helps, but then it's also like up to date, but it's very like easy to follow. Not easy, but it's such well organized tutorials. They're easier to follow. And there's this interview I was watching by Reason Studios. They do this stay inside. What's it called? It's like I always have to like find what I was watching. It's episode 12 of Reason Studios series called Your Reason to Stay Inside. And it was a live stream, but then they did this replay. And so it's episode 12, July/Kickback Couture. And it's, so, I mean, the whole interview is great, but there was part of it where they were mentioning about freestyling, and something that I found very interesting, that the interviewer mentioned that that they were talking about freestyle rapping, and how they put some freestyle rappers in, like, I don't know if it was for some kind of imaging. I don't know if it was like a like an MRI or fMRI, but something where they could see like the different areas of the brain that were being activated. And they basically had people who know how to freestyle. I don't know the whole study, but I'm just going by what they mentioned. They had people who knew how to freestyle rap go into the scanner, and they would freestyle rap while they were getting their brain activity recorded. And then they said there was like this sweet spot between like 30 minutes and a minute, or sorry, between 30 seconds and a minute or something, where there was this one area of the brain that completely just would shut off. And they said that area of the brain, what the guy called it was like self-critique, but I guess I don't know if that's the right term or not. I don't know the actual term, but it's like basically the part of your brain that like has you, that kind of keeps you like socially within the norms, the part of your brain that kind of keeps you from doing something that you've maybe from saying something, it kind of regulates you a little bit more. And so like it critiques you. It tells you like things about yourself, like oh, you're saying this too fast, or like you're talking too loud, or you're talking too quiet, or you're not making good enough eye contact, or whatever. Like the self-critique, whatever part is like critical, it shuts off, and then you're able to just kind of flow through the rap. And people who are skilled with freestyle rapping, it sounds like their brain has the ability to just shut that off, and they're able to kind of freestyle rap, just kind of flowing through their brain, kind of almost like, the only thing I could think is maybe similar is when you're like I don't know, like maybe free association, maybe something like that, or yeah, that's the only thing I can really think that might be similar. I've seen people with prayer doing this, or people with like writing kind of too. Like if you can like write or type fast enough, and just kind of like writing stuff down, and then stuff comes out, kind of like unconsciously comes out. I mean, I just found that pretty fascinating, because I was like, wow, like that's a cool ability to be able to tap into. I mean, there's definitely got to be value in that, that you can kind of get into this like flow state where you're kind of like no longer in a certain part of your brain. That's really cool, because it's like a musical style that can kind of get you there. I thought that was pretty interesting. And then I got onto thinking about all this other like hip hop stuff and different music things, and then yeah, and I recently rewatched 8 Mile. It's on Netflix lately. So I mean, I love that movie, so I rewatched it, and I was like, okay. But yeah, it kind of got me, you know, it was kind of reminding me of that, because there are a lot of people who freestyle in that movie. I don't know if they're really freestyling for real in the movie or if it's already scripted, but yeah, that's kind of my take on, you know, musical culture and you know, different types of music. Like I mean, I mostly wanted to talk about the brain scan thing, but you know, I was like, it's gonna be like 10 minutes just talk about the brain scan thing, but this is way longer. But yeah, I was finding it interesting. Like I've been kind of like dabbling around, kind of studying some musical stuff lately, like not really in a traditional sense or like in a really organized sense, but kind of like pulling up some of my old tracks that I found this 1 terabyte hard drive, and I was like pulling up some tracks and trying to remember how I built them and like what I was doing. I thought I had lost those tracks forever, so I'm kind of glad that like they pull up on this computer, because I think the last time I tried to pull them up, I couldn't pull them up. But I think I was in a demo version of the software, so maybe that's why they didn't work. But now, like, I was really happy a while ago to like open up like the terabyte hard drive and find like a whole bunch of my stuff on there still. I think I have Ableton Live on there. I think it's version 9. It's old, but yeah, I was thinking I lost that forever, so it's you know, kind of a nice fun day for me musically. But yeah, I mean, check out that YouTube video if you're interested. I mean, the whole thing, it wasn't the whole video wasn't about that topic. It was mostly the interview with July at the very beginning. Maybe it was like about an hour and a half long full video, like maybe like 95 minutes or something around there. And then it was you know, the beginning was July being interviewed by one of the people who works for Reason Studios, the music software company. And then she was so she was getting interviewed, and then she was given like a couple samples to kind of show how she would like build a track off of, like, I think it was like a couple like one was like kind of like a guitar riff, and one was kind of like a bass riff, I think. And she kind of built beats off of them and just kind of built this whole like track out of it, and like you kind of see the instrument she's using on there. It's all on the computer. There was no like live physical like acoustic instruments or anything. And I really like, oh man, I've loved Reason ever since one of my friends first showed it to me. I was just like, I need this in my life. I love this so much. Like, I like the complexity of it and how it can be simple. You can literally just like load up tracks or load up like samples and just like use samples that already exist, or you can like build from scratch. So I really like it. I'm probably going to be talking about it all the time because I'm kind of playing around with it a lot lately. And then yeah, but it's just kind of some food for thought, you know, especially when it comes about like things like music and culture and race. It's interesting to see music from different cultures. Like, I know growing up, like when I first started driving, like one of my favorite things was that I have a car so I can blast my music while I drive down the street. It was kind of like just totally what I was into. It was kind of like, it was like, you know, I get to listen to my music loud and nobody's gonna tell me to shut up, because it's like, well, nobody was like that in my house anyways, but I don't have to worry about necessarily bothering anybody because I'm like in motion, and I, you know, was able to kind of listen to things loud with a good sound system, and in a way, like maybe loud enough, you can kind of share your music when you pull up to another car. Like, not really like a show off kind of thing, but just kind of like, yeah, if somebody overhears this and they want, to hear something, fun. I was always listening to like Red Rat, like dance hall music, a lot of like music from Zimbabwe, klezmer music, Bhangra music from like India. Like I got into like some Turkish pop. I like, that kind of Middle Eastern like string instruments sound, like with those minor key songs. Like I listen to all kinds of stuff, but that's the kind of stuff I used to like drive around town listening to. I used to find it like really fun. And then of course like my usual metal and whatever else, I remember a friend later on told me about the Initial D soundtrack, on like I don't know if it's the soundtrack or the musicians who write most of the music that's in the Initial D video game, arcade game. There's music that you listen to in the car when you're driving that game, and then there's music that you can kind of like get on like Spotify or whatever, and like I remember I would like drive around and like listen to it. I love that game. I love racing games so much, and Initial D is like my favorite one. I hope it's still going. I think the last time I played it was a few years ago, and it was number 6 or 8. I think number 6. But it was fun. And then yeah, that's kind of mostly what I was thinking about today. As far as some music related topics, I found all that kind of interesting to me. Just the more I think about it, how complex music really is. You could spend a lifetime in just studying like one genre of music that's not even really like fully progressing too much, because it's like kind of like an old or dead style of music almost. Like I don't think any music is really like that, though. I feel like people are always like expanding on it, but like you can take something that's like, I don't know, like skiffle music or something like that. It's like, it's not like there's people out there that are like, like maybe they are artists that write skiffle music, original tracks, but they're not like in the mainstream. They're not popular. But there's music like that where it's like, okay, like nobody really plays this, but you can always find someone around who kind of does, but it's not like common music. People have moved forward past that and they're like done. Even if some people are still like into it, there's always going to be people still into it and still writing certain styles of music, and that's great too. And I just find it kind of interesting, like music kind of spans time, cultures. I love like finding types of music that I'm just like, what, like anything that makes me say like what is like usually I'm gonna try to listen to it more and try to figure out like what the heck is going on. Like the 3 types of music I mentioned, like those to me are just like, even though I don't like seek out those experiences or whatever, they're still like, they're so interesting because they're so unique compared to my own culture. Like there's nothing like any of those in my own culture that I can really think of. Like I have to like try to like make it sound like it's similar to something else, but it's still so different from the things I can compare it to. But yeah, I don't know. It's been kind of nice just to kind of like think about music more, and just like I'm not really trying to do anything like massively impressive or anything, just kind of keeping my brain active. And projects are really the way that I kind of thrive when I have good projects going on. I like to learn stuff every day, and it was kind of a bummer that I kind of fell out of certain musical stuff. Like, I don't have the motor memory with guitar right now, and like I can't really read music as well or as fast as I used to. Like, I'm totally like multiple years out of practice now. The software that I took so long to learn, I don't really remember it off the top of my head anymore. I have to go back. Sometimes it's even just a matter of like I can't even remember how to like turn the sound on so it comes out of my computer, and I'm like fumbling around with all these like audio, like buttons and all this kind of like, how do I upload this, or how do I use this speaker, or how do I, it's like I can spend half an hour doing that, just not even knowing how to get the sound out of it when like say YouTube is in the background and then like Reason won't work or something like that. It's like simple stuff that like I once knew all the commands and everything. I don't remember anything, honestly, but it's going to take time to kind of get back to a level where I can actually like do at least basic stuff. But I still have tracks that I have from before, so I can add to those. There's always like these weird little glitchy things that I'm like, oh, which wire do I have to turn the rack around, and like which wire do I put to what thing, and what goes with this mixer or whatever. Like it's just like this is stuff that I used to just know off the top of my head. I wouldn't have to think about it. But I mean, ultimately, like, as long as I'm not going out all the time, I really have all the time in the world to really do all this. And I'm not really like into doing too much dating right now, or really too much of any, like I don't mind socializing, but I'm kind of keeping a lot of my social life to a little bit of a minimum. At least for a lot of the summer. Like I did spend a lot of money on concerts and stuff, but I bought those tickets so far in advance. It was like I forgot when I even had them. Like if my friend hadn't told me about the concert this past weekend, I don't think I would have remembered that at all. Odessa was great. Tycho was great. Great groups. It was kind of a surprise for me to see Tycho, because when I buy tickets for stuff, I don't really look to see who's opening, and I didn't have access to the tickets, and I just didn't check, the bill. So, it was kind of funny, but I was just glad to see a concert in LA, honestly. Like, I don't know. I miss seeing concerts in LA. Like, San Diego's a lot more convenient for a lot of my friends to go to concerts. So I've probably been to more. No, I've been to an even amount. I've been like 3 here and 3 there, I'd say, in the past like year or so. But that's kind of where I'm like, I'd rather spend my money going to concerts. Yeah, it might be like $100-something or whatever, but it's like, to me, that's better than spending like 2-3 weekends like drinking, at the bar. Like, I'd rather just save the money and like buy concert tickets, because that's kind of a nicer experience. It's more memorable. The bars and clubs every now and then, but I'd rather kind of transition out. But yeah, that's kind of just where my head is lately, how things are going lately with things. Like, I don't even know. Like, I'm kind of wiped out, but like in a good way. Like, it's been a while since I've had a good wiped out feeling. Like, and last night, over the weekend during my PTO, I was kind of getting into this stuff again, and like over the last like few weeks I have been, honestly, a couple months actually, but little by little. And then this was like the first few days that I was kind of like back into the swing of things. And it's been kind of nice. I'd rather honestly be tired from this than from work. So, like, I don't know, it's kind of weird. I've been even sleeping a little bit better. So, That's nice, but yeah, all right. I'm timing out on here, but all right, guys, thanks for listening.